Okay, it's live, Mom. We are live. All right, well, let me give you a hug. I know you. Act like I know you. Even though this is an official video that we're recording for all of our family and friends and future generations so that they can know you for thousands, many millennium to come. This is going to be forever. So, are you ready?
We're ready to go.
Good. All right, so let me just start by announcing that today is Friday, September 25th, 2020, the greatest year of all time. We're in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic, and we got a little extra time here because they say it's dangerous to go out and do stuff. So we're staying in,
That's right.
doing what we can.
Keeping our toes dry.
Might as well share a little wisdom, share a little love with this, making the most out of the time that we have.
There you go.
All right, so what's your name?
Oh, I'm Barbara Schroud Thomas.
And I'm Desmond Thomas, her son. And tell us a little bit about where you were born, when you were born.
Okay, I was born in Yolo County, Woodland, California, in August 26, 1948.
Now, Woodland, is that near Sacramento?
Yes, it's near Sacramento.
Oh, cool. And what was it like? Were you born in a hospital?
Oh, sure, I was born in a hospital. I was.
Or a log cabin? Or
No log cabins out in California. No, not that I know
was it a manger? Was it?
of. No.
Was it a pile of hay?
Using time up here.
She said stay on point. Oh, okay. All right. And your parents?
Okay, so my mother is Marjorie Rosetta Botts Schroud, and my father was Reuben Marcus Schroud. They're both German, come from German roots, and I know most of my family history through my mother.
What part of Germany?
Okay, her history goes back to Bavaria, Germany.
Nice.
So, yeah, our ancestors came over here in 1850, sorry.
1850, that's before the Civil War.
Yes, 1850, and they came to New York, took a ship to Milwaukee, and then my great-great-grandfather walked 80 miles to Madison, Wisconsin. And there he got the last 2 plots of land in Sun Prairie, which was for farming, and he had to clear the land and build his house. Yes.
So we were part of the wave of Europeans that came over through Ellis Island, New York.
He, yes, he didn't come through Ellis Island, but he came to Ellis Island. All I know is he wasn't in steerage. He was in the upper class compartment because they had money.
Oh, okay. We came over here with a little privilege.
Yes, we were lucky.
So, over in Bavaria, the original ancestor, I think his name was Peter, if I'm not mistaken. Peter Botts.
Could be, yeah. They were dukes. Their title was Duke.
They had status,
They were attached to, in a roundabout way, to the royalty. I think dukedoms were appointed by the king.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And you said the first son back then inherited everything.
Everything. All the father's wealth went to the first son. And
But our ancestor was not the first son.
he was the second son.
he knew he was not going to inherit everything.
He was supposed to go to the priesthood. That was
So-
what they had scheduled for him.
They were going to make him a priest.
And whether he wanted to or he did not, and he did not want to.
So our heritage is Roman Catholic.
Yes,
We're Catholicism.
yes.
It's our birthright. It was handed down. We had no choice.
Well, we were Catholic, yes.
That's just what you were. And they were gonna try to make him a priest, and he said he didn't want to do that.
No, he already had a girlfriend, and she was like his fiancée, and he wanted to marry her.
So he packed his stuff up. They were from agricultural. Bavaria is very
Yes,
agricultural.
yes.
They were farming people.
As far as I know.
Yes. So that's why Wisconsin was very attractive.
Yeah, a lot of his friends had already come here. They had already come to Sun Prairie. He had a lot of friends here. That's another attraction. So that's why he came to Sun Prairie. They told him there were plots of land left that he could get.
And Wisconsin was similar to where we're from.
But yeah, the climate is, and also the scenery is very similar to Bavaria, from what I understand. I haven't been to Bavaria.
We'll have to go someday. All right, so he, to escape the oppressive conditions in Europe, where the first son inherits everything.
That's right.
The other sons just get sent off to be priests.
Just the second one. Then after that, I don't know what happens after that.
He had to escape that oppressive system. Came over, got his freedom.
Yes.
Now, when you say freedom, free land.
He got 2 plots of free land the government was giving out at that time.
160 acres.
No, 200 acres each. He got 400 acres.
400 acres
Yes,
of pristine farmland
with woods and everything on it.
in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.
Right.
If you haven't been there, check it out, y'all. It's beautiful. So he was set up pretty nicely.
Yeah, he had, his father gave him the money that they were gonna give to the priesthood, and gave it to him to start his life out here, which he did.
And that's on the bot side.
On the bot side, he did very well for himself, extremely well.
That's your maternal,
Yes, my mother's great-grandfather.
your mother's great-grandfather. And the Schroud side, which is your paternal family.
Yeah, my father, yeah, I don't know much about his family. I just know my grandparents. I don't know, I think they're German, pretty much, but I have never seen a family history of them.
And that's because your parents divorced when you were at an early age.
Yeah, but I don't think mother even knew much about his background. I just know some names, and I don't know where they fit, and I don't know where they came from. I'd have to investigate all that.
All right. We've got family watching. We've got lots of Shrouds out there
Yes.
that can, maybe comment. Leave the Shroud family history in the comments from the original ancestor that came to America to now. Anyhow, you were born in Sacramento, California,
Yes.
but that's not where our family was settled.
Now, my parents were planning to stay out there after the war. However, shortly after I was born, my father's parents in Wisconsin asked him to come back because my grandmother Schroud got sick. So they came back to Wisconsin to help her out, and they never went back to California after that.
Would you say there was a little bit of California dreaming there? Like back then, even now, people have this.
I think on my father's side, because after my parents split up, he went back to California and he stayed there.
For a while.
until he died.
Oh, did he die in California?
Yes.
Okay. California dreaming, man. Something about California, especially people from the Midwest, man. They just can't wait to get out there. Give it all up. So, life was a lot different back in the 1940s and 50s.
Yeah, early 50s.
Can you tell us about what life was like out on the frontier land?
I wasn't.
Sun Prairie?
We were in Sun Prairie, and my parents and his friends had established Sun Prairie. So I was very entrenched in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.
We were one of the pioneer families.
Yeah, we were the pioneer families that set up Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Among the 5 or 6 families that got together and did it. And so we lived there pretty much. And my parents had a nursing home on the edge of Madison, but we still lived most of our life in Sun Prairie. And my grandmother had a nursing home in Sun Prairie, and my uncle, my father's brother, Roger, he had a nursing home in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. So our whole family on my father's side was doing nursing homes.
Did you have to help work in the nursing home?
Well, when my parents set up their nursing home, I was 4 years old. So Connie and Tom, the older 2 of my siblings, they had to do most of the work. I didn't have to work in the nursing home. I had to. Paul and I mostly went around and visited patients. That's what we did. Talk to the patients.
Tell us. So you're one of how many siblings?
There's 2 girls and 2 boys, so we have 4 kids.
Gotcha. Hi, Aunt Connie. Hi, Uncle Tom, Uncle Paul,
Yes.
and you.
That's right.
So, that's Sun Prairie in a nutshell. You came back from California. You moved to Sun Prairie when you were how old?
About 3 or 4.
3 or 4, just old enough to start kindergarten.
I didn't go to kindergarten. I went to first grade. Kindergarten wasn't that popular in those days. They were just starting it out.
All right, and what about life, just overall life? Did you have an outhouse? What about air conditioning? Tell us how the home was structured, like air conditioning. What did you use for heat in the winter? How did it all? How was laundry done?
It wasn't pioneer days. We had running water and electricity. We had a normal house.
Okay.
The nursing home, air conditioning was not popular in those days. Hardly anyone had it.
Okay.
It was just getting started. So Wisconsin, a moderate climate, you don't really need air conditioning very often.
What about heat?
So we had heat. A lot of people were still using wood in those days, or oil, but we had a furnace. I don't know what it used, but we had a furnace.
Okay. And laundry? Did they put it on clotheslines, or how did it
Well,
work?
we had the nursing home, so because of that, it was all done in machines. We had we had a bunch of washing machines and a bunch of dryers that did all the laundry.
Gotcha. I remember one time you told me that you actually wrung the neck of a chicken.
Oh, that was at my grandma's house. They were still living on the farm, and she taught me how to. She had chickens. She raised chickens and had eggs, and she taught me how to get a chicken ready for dinner.
Outstanding.
Just once.
Did you ever get fresh eggs and things like that?
All the time, yeah. She'd send me out to get the eggs every day. You have to get them. Yep.
Wow. So, And you mentioned that milk, they used to have a milkman that would come around sometimes.
No. Grandpa he had a dairy cows. He had dairy. The farm was across the road, and Grandpa and Grandma's house was on the other side of the road. So Grandpa every morning would go to the big farm across the road, and there were milk cows and goats. There were pigs. There were lamb. There were geese. There was all kind of animals over there. Everything you can think of, and he would milk the cows in the evening, and when he came home across the road, he'd come across the road, he carried the milk for the house with him in a milk can and then gave it to Grandma.
Fresh.
Fresh milk from the cow.
Farm fresh.
Yeah.
So food must have tasted a lot better back then.
Well, I don't know if it did because that's all the food I had, so I don't know.
All right, so take us to school. Do you remember what school you went to, the first school?
Sure, yeah. We went to Sacred Heart School in Sunbury, Wisconsin. It's still there. The same. I went to the old school. It was a wooden structure, but they were building the new school when I went to first grade, and in second grade it was finished. So from second to 10th grade I went there.
And you went to Catholic school?
All the way through high school, yep. Yes.
Even your senior year of high school, you were still in Catholic school?
Yeah, well, that in 10th grade, that's all the way further that Sacred Heart School went. So I had to go to Madison to the Catholic school there, Edgewood High School. I went there my junior year, and then my senior year we moved to Marinette, Wisconsin, which I hated, but I was up there and I went to Catholic school up there, Marinette Catholic Central High School. Actually, that high school turned out to be the best out of the three.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So you said back then Catholics didn't really mix with Protestants.
No, we were taught not to mix with other faiths, no. You can talk to them, but you can't have them as friends or, no.
So not only was there racial segregation, but people segregated themselves religiously, according to their religion.
Yeah.
And also it was very Bavarian. It was very German.
Everybody knew everybody. They knew where you came from. They even knew where your family came. You probably knew where we came from in Bavaria. Everybody. It was very parochial.
And you said all those years when you were born, all the way up into high school, you didn't see many people of color.
I didn't even know anything about black people. No, I don't remember black people at all being in my childhood. No.
And TV wasn't really that big of a thing when you were born.
TV was invented when I was about 5, 6, 7. But my mother had a very bad attitude. She did not like the television. She refused to get one. So the only access we had to television was one of the patients had a television, and we could watch it in her room. That's and at Grandma and Grandpa's house, Grandpa had a TV. They had a TV. So, but my mother would not allow us to have a television. No.
That was good. She was a good mom. It was a good mom. Because you got some moms now that are limiting TV, and I say more power to them. TV is the devil. So, tell us about the move from Sun Prairie. Okay, your parents got divorced. Your biological
Yeah.
father and your biological mother got divorced.
Yeah, when I was 5, they got divorced. When I was 5, my parents split up. My father moved back to California. And then when I was about 11, my mother married my stepfather, John Warzon. And he was working in Madison, but he had a heart attack. So we had to move. We moved back to where he was from, which is Marinette, Wisconsin. So we moved up there when I was a junior in high school. Well, I just finished my junior year, and then that summer we moved up there, and I finished senior year in Marinette.
It's also Marinette, Menominee.
Twin cities, Marinette on one side, Marinette, Wisconsin, the other side, Menominee, Michigan.
Which is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Yes.
It's very isolated up there.
Very rural.
Rural.
It's for timberland. Timber
Yeah.
was their industry.
Rural isn't the word for it up there. It's beyond rural.
Yeah, it's way.
It's like the pioneer days.
Well, we actually moved into an actual log cabin. That was a big issue. When you're a senior in high school and you move into a log cabin with no running water, no electricity, I had a very bad attitude towards that. Thank you very much.
So as a teenager, you were maybe 16, 15, 16, 17?
I'd say 16, yeah.
16 is a rough year anyway.
Yeah,
And your parents moved you.
yeah,
Your mother married this guy.
yeah. We didn't want her to marry him.
This guy that you weren't too keen on.
No, we didn't like him.
He
No.
turned out to be a good guy. Pretty
No,
much.
he never did turn out to be a good. No, that's
I met
not
him.
true.
I met him when I was like 5.
Well, he liked you guys.
He was John was good to me, and I see the buildings he built. He was a good builder, and folks have a lot of good things to say about him in that area.
He was meaner than a snake.
But that's one thing, seeing what he does, but living with him was very difficult for
Right.
you. It's tough for anybody to live with a step parent, so I can imagine. But not only that, they took you from modern civilization in Sun Prairie, Madison.
Yeah.
You know, that's a
To
civilized
an
area.
actual log cabin built by pioneers, like in 1900 or something like that, way back. It was original log cabin.
A good, just for symbolism, a good way to put it is you went from having a bathroom with plumbing to an outhouse.
Yes.
That's a good way to visualize, and it was like maybe 4.5, 5 hours north
Of Madison.
of Madison.
Yeah.
So you're going way up, right near Canada,
Yes, near Canada.
all
Right.
the way to the top of the United States. It's
It's
colder,
cold, very cold.
and it's a log cabin.
And there's nobody up there but you. You're in the woods all by yourself.
Man, and you're going into your senior year.
Senior year of high school.
How did you get from all the, because the school was like 10 miles away. How did you get to school?
Mother had to drive me, or I drove. I had a car, and sometimes I went. Mother worked in town, so I'd go with her, or drive my car.
Okay. You knew how to drive right at 16.
Well, yeah, you had to take professional driver's lessons in Michigan. We lived on the Michigan side, so I did that and got my driver's license right away.
But all that time, that 1 year, your senior year,
Yeah.
when you were up in the middle of the woods,
Yeah,
you couldn't wait to get out of there.
I couldn't wait. Right, couldn't wait to escape.
So what'd you do? You graduated from.
I signed up for college in town, and I convinced my mother to get me a room in town with a family so that I could live in town and go to school there, which worked out. That worked out.
So are you saying after you graduated high school,
Yeah.
you went to the community college right there?
It's actually it's part of the University of Wisconsin system, so
Okay.
it's not a community college.
It was your freshman year of your 4-year.
Yeah, my first
College.
2 years I went up there. First 2 years.
First 2 years you went to UW Marinette.
Yes, on the Wisconsin side. Yep.
And what were you studying?
Medicine. I signed up to be a nurse, but I got the books, and then they were too simple, too elementary, so I signed up for pre-med. So then I was in the pre-med program.
And after those 2 years, and then what made you transfer?
Okay, so I had to transfer because the college only went to sophomore year. So my boyfriend was transferring to Milwaukee. So instead of transferring to Madison where my relatives were, I transferred to Milwaukee to be with him. But we broke up before we even left home.
And I bet you couldn't wait, even Marinette, I bet you couldn't wait to get out of there either.
Oh yeah, I wasn't from Marinette, so
Hold on.
something went dead.
Yeah. I don't know what happened here.
So keep doing that.
Keep talking. Check. Oh, I know what it is. You're still on.
Hello? Okay, so I wasn't from Marinette, so I couldn't wait to go to Milwaukee. I got an apartment there and signed up for school and got a scholarship, and away I went. It was great.
So when you got to Milwaukee though,
Yeah.
was it like a aha moment? Was it you all of a sudden
Well,
you're seeing all
yeah.
of these, it's
Well,
a big city and
I
everything?
remember the first thing that happened, I turned on the radio and I heard Aretha Franklin sing a song, and I couldn't believe it. I never heard anything like it. I was hooked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the first song I heard when I turned the radio on,
Wow.
and I was hooked to
And
the
that's
music and the lifestyle and living. I was now back in the 20th century.
And what year was that?
1967, turning into 1968.
Oh man.
Was the fall of 1967.
So the 60s, can you just, I mean, I wasn't born till 1976, so can you sum up your perspective of the 1960s for us, as far as there was civil rights, there was women's rights, there was Vietnam.
Yeah, there was lots of, there was the war.
Talk about that for a minute. I'll
Okay,
get
there
the
was
sound.
the Vietnam War, and then there was the women's rights movement, and there was demonstrations all over, probably all over the world, but I was aware of the United States, and we had demonstrations at the university, we had demonstrations downtown, and we had meetings all the time about all these new movements that were going on. And there was Haight-Ashbury out in California. There were hippies all over the place. There was music. Music was a big part of all of that. It was an amazing time to be alive. It was absolutely a huge movement of changing from the 1950s, and the whole United States graduated into the 70s. It was amazing. And then after I moved to Milwaukee that year, I met my husband Desmond, and right after that Martin Luther King Jr. got killed, and all kinds of things started happening. But it was a very turbulent time in the United States. I was right in the middle of it, right in the middle.
So, also you were not only, you were a woman. There was burning of bras.
They burned bras, they burned draft cards. Monks from Tibet came over to the United States and burned themselves alive on the Capitol steps.
And
Actually, immolation. They actually did that.
And what do you think of that now? Do you think that they were out of their minds in the 60s? Were they going too far?
Well, there was a lot of drugs involved. I wasn't involved in all these drugs. There were a lot of LSD and, I don't know, marijuana and other stuff. But I did not take to drugs. I didn't want anything to do with them. So I know drugs had a lot to do with these people acting crazy. But there was a lot of foundation to their causes. I thought they had good causes. So I was on the side of the causes, but I didn't participate in the drug scene. There was huge drug scene starting up.
So you meet my dad at a foreign student event, an international student
That's
reception.
Right. It was an international student tea hosted by Marquette University. And my roommate she had a date, and he had a friend who needed a date, so I was his date. But that wasn't Desmond, that was another guy. And then I met Desmond at that party.
Was it love at first sight? No.
For me, I was very attracted to him. Yes, I was very attracted to him. I don't know if it was love at first sight on his side, but I was infatuated at least.
And was this around the time of civil rights, the racial issues of the 1960s?
Oh yeah, this was right in the middle of all that. This was just before Martin Luther King was killed.
And what side were you on? What did you think of it back then? Were you on?
I thought black people should have all the rights that white people had. I wasn't even aware before this that there was any problems. I didn't know that.
Was it scary?
It was like a totally new, like a totally different country that I moved to. Yeah.
Was it cool? Was it cool that, okay, I'm part of making history, that I'm opening up our country? Or was it scary? Like, okay, this is a world that I don't know anything about.
Well, as long as I was with Desmond or in a group, I was okay. But I wouldn't have been by myself. I would have been afraid. Yeah.
Okay. Didn't they teach you about slavery in Catholic school when you were little?
Yes.
You learned
They
about
did.
the history of the United States.
Yes, the nuns taught us that slavery was a bad thing, and we went through the history of slavery, and that the nuns said that black people were the same as white people, but I didn't know any black people. I didn't know where they lived. I didn't know any black people.
Now, when you actually started dating a black person, my father, who is Jamaican, so not only is he black, he's from a whole nother country.
Yeah.
With a whole different culture and a whole different set of ideas.
Exactly.
Whole different language, and you bring him. Did you bring him home for Thanksgiving or anything like that?
Yeah, I took him up to the 80 when we'd been dating about a year, I'd say, about a year.
These were the times of Guess Who's Coming for Dinner, like Sidney Poitier movie.
Actually, our first date, he took me to that movie. That was our first date.
So this was life imitating the movies.
Yes.
It was.
He said later, I asked him why he took me to that movie, because it was about a interracial marriage. But he told me that didn't enter into his mind. He took me to the movie because he wanted me to see the Jamaican countryside.
Oh.
The scenery.
Some of that was in the movie?
It was filmed in Jamaica.
Oh, you mean James Bond?
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Was filmed in Jamaica.
Okay.
So that's why he took me to it. But I saw a white girl marrying a black guy, and I thought that's why he was taking me to the movie.
I bet it was just as eye-opening for him as it was for you. Everything going up to the 80, I bet that was just as foreign to him as you going to Jamaica.
Going to the 80 was definitely educational experience for your father. Yeah.
Did you face any issues, because this was almost a new thing at that time?
Yes, we did, but your father is very good at handling discrimination, and he always handled it very well. So it didn't become a big deal.
Did that enter into the equation when you were picking places to live? Did you have
Yes.
to think about, okay, we need to go somewhere where it's safe for us?
Well, I actually, when we got married and we had to find a new apartment, there were issues. People didn't want to rent to us because of our marriage.
They
Yes.
didn't approve. They
They
didn't.
didn't take black people, they'd say. We don't take blacks.
People would say that.
They actually say that.
What?
Yep,
This was in Wisconsin.
in Milwaukee, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
But we did find apartments, not too much difficulty.
Right. Well, I noticed here in Evanston, it's very racially progressive, and Madison was also progressive on many,
Yeah.
many fronts.
Yeah, because Madison is the big university. They have people from all over, so it wasn't an issue at all in Madison.
I was born in Madison.
Yes.
And then 1 year later, we moved here to Evanston.
Yeah, that's right. We moved, that same next year. I think you were 2 or 3 when we moved to Evanston. I loved Evanston right off the bat.
Race is not that big of a deal here in this town. Maybe that's why we like it so much.
It's just an easy place to live. I love it.
It really is beautiful. Y'all, if you haven't been to Evanston, check it out. Evanston, it's a suburb of Chicago. Really nice, really
It's
progressive.
on the lake. Couldn't ask for a better place, really.
All right, so you moved to Chicago. Evanston is basically Chicago. That must have been another, growing experience. It's an even bigger city.
Yeah, but because we were in Evanston, which is a small city, and I worked right in Evanston, well, it's Skokie next door, Skokie.
And you had been here on your summers. You had come here.
Oh yeah, I used to work in Chicago during college. I would come to Chicago
Like a
and
nanny?
babysit. Yeah,
They call that being a nanny now.
that's right. Then too. So I was a nanny 4 years, and it was in Skokie, next where I worked.
For a Jewish family in Skokie.
Yes, I loved it.
Was that your first experience with Jewish people?
Yes,
And,
yes.
And they treated you lovely.
Oh, I loved them. I loved those people. Yes.
You played in the symphony, the Chicago Symphony?
The Wexlers were both in the orchestra. The father was he played the violin, and the mother played the bass cello.
And didn't you say that when they moved, you actually did one summer out there with them?
Okay, well, the first 2 years were in Skokie, and then they moved to Beverly Hills, California, where the movie stars live. And I moved out there. I spent that summer out there.
Wow, that must have been nice.
It was nice. We were in Jean Harlow's house. She was dead by then, but that was her house. And then the big earthquake hit that area that year, so Mrs. Wexler didn't want to live there anymore, so they moved to Scottsdale, Arizona. And the 4th year I went to Scottsdale.
Wow, you've been all over, man.
Yeah.
The West Coast is not a stranger to you. All right, so let's talk about your career a little bit. You studied medicine. You were almost pre-med in college.
Yeah, I did graduate from pre-med, but I didn't want to go to college anymore. If I was going to be a doctor, I was facing 6 more years at least. I didn't want to do that, so I had to spend an extra year interning to become a med tech. and I worked in laboratories then. And that I like that. Yeah, it
So you
suited
were-
me fine.
You graduated from your bachelor's. You got a bachelor's in what was your
pre-med.
your major was pre-med.
Yes, and then I got a bachelor's in medical technology.
You went to grad school.
Well, it's just a intern program. It's just an internship.
Okay.
It's not another degree.
Okay.
It's just like a co-degree or something like that.
And you were a good student all the way from the very get-go. You were a great student.
I was a straight A student until I met Desmond, and then I started having fun.
You liked
And
the
then I
party.
was a B student.
Hey, you got to be well-rounded, right? You didn't want to be 100%.
I never went out or had fun until I met Desmond. Never did anything.
And back then, parties, you guys used to party hardy.
What attracted me to Desmond and his friends was that they would party, they would dance and have fun, but they didn't get drunk and they didn't do drugs. And that's what I liked.
That's still how we are.
They're still like that. They'll have one or two drinks and they'll dance and they'll have a good time, but they don't do drugs. That's my idea of a good time.
The next day you can get up and go back to work.
Yeah, so that type of having fun attracted me to Desmond.
Okay. So talk about children. Shout out to James. He's my older brother. You had a child when you were.
Oh yeah, when I got about junior year or senior year, I was 20 and I got pregnant. And Desmond didn't want to get married till he was 30. He was 26. So I did not want the baby to have a stepfather. I already had that terrible experience
In your own life.
in my own life. It tore our family apart. So I decided to put James up for adoption so he would have a father and a mother.
And we recently, after all those years, we recently reconnected with James,
That's right.
and it was awesome.
It's wonderful.
I'm so glad we did it. He was adopted by another family, but we always loved him, and we still do. We always will. It's just life got in the way. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah.
You said it the best. And so then I was born
So then
a few years later.
You were born 7 years later when we got married.
You were finally out of college, established in your career.
Yeah, I was established in my career, and your father, he didn't want to marry me at first. He didn't intend to marry me. He didn't tell me this, but
What man wants to get married? I mean, it's
maybe
like,
that was it.
that's very common.
So he decided to go home to Jamaica. He was going to marry a nice Jamaican girl. That's a direct quote, a nice Jamaican girl. So he went there for 2 years, and after 2 years, he was writing to me every week. I told him, don't write to me every week anymore. I don't want any contact with you anymore. I'm done now. I'm going to get married myself. So I told him to just leave me alone. And then the next letter I got was, we're getting married.
Ha. Ha.
Huh, yeah.
And the rest is history.
And then we got married.
He came back to America, and
That he came back to America, and we got married.
we got married. And then I was born quickly after that. You got married in 1 year.
I think I had a very bad pregnancy that I almost died when we first got married.
What year was your marriage?
72.
Okay, 72.
And then I had to recover from that. I almost died. It was really bad. All kind of blood clots and a big mess. And then after I recovered from that, I got pregnant with you.
You have a genetic blood clotting disorder.
Yes, which they didn't know about in those days, but
which makes pregnancy
deadly.
a big problem. because when you get pregnant, you get these really bad blood clots
Yeah,
that will kill you.
that will kill you.
And birth control also does that.
I got, when I was 18, my girlfriend in college gave me a package of birth control pills. Her doctor told her to hand them out to her friends and see if they liked them. And after 2 weeks, I got a blood clot, and I liked it.
So you have a clotting disorder, which you're still on medication for.
Yeah, I inherited it from my mother. Grandma Warzon had it also. She had blood clots during pregnancy, also.
Your mother did.
Yes.
Did you have that problem with me?
No, I didn't have. With you and Lisa, it was a perfect pregnancy. Like James too. James and you and Lisa were perfect pregnancies all the way through.
Wow.
And all the other ones were disasters, total disasters.
So that must be why it didn't work with the
Yeah.
other ones. Okay. All right. Well, we've covered a little ground there. You started a family with me in 1976.
That's right.
We were in Madison because that's where the job was, right?
Your dad got transferred there, his job.
Working for Johnson & Johnson or something like that.
I think it was Johnson & Johnson at that time. It was a corporation.
He went into the corporate America at a time when it was just opening up to black men in the early 70s.
Yes.
He was probably part of the first generation where they had affirmative action, where they actually recruited black people to work for the corporations. But it didn't go too well for him. It was very stressful.
Well, he always performed well at work, but the stress is what got to him.
And then his kidneys collapsed.
He got ulcerative colitis. Ulcerative colitis tends to be caused by stress.
So he had to
The doctor told him he had to quit or he's gonna die.
That corporate America ate him up and spit him out.
Yep. So when we moved, he actually got transferred here with another corporation, but then he quit that and went into real estate in Evanston, and that suited Desmond's personality to a T. It was perfect.
My pops went into business for himself, and he pretty much stayed that way, for the rest of his career. He was an
He
entrepreneur.
never worked for anyone else.
He was his own boss all
Yeah.
those years. But it was the health issues, the stress that really made that happen.
Yes, it was stress.
And he was right around 30 years old, right?
Well, when we married, he was 30, and so he would have been 32, 33.
32 or 33
Yeah.
when he almost died
Yeah.
from the stress. I can only imagine how hard it was being the first generation of brothers going into corporate America. So, what happened? We moved to Florida eventually. Can you talk about how that?
Yeah, we were
Came
living
to
in
be.
Evanston and everything was fine. And then we were in Jamaica at Christmas one year. And while we were gone, they had the snow blizzard of the century.
The Great Blizzard of 1979.
It was horrible. It was like snow up to the second floor of all the buildings. There was snow in the street up to like 6 feet. People had to spend 2 days shoveling their car out of the snow.
And what good is that if the street is full of snow? What good is shoveling your car out? You can't drive anywhere.
It was paralyzed.
For how long?
There were people with their own trucks snowplowing the street because the snowplows couldn't do it. And people were shooting each other over parking spots because they spent all those days shoveling it out, and then someone else tried to take it. They'd shoot them. Then they went to the degree of putting sofas in the parking space so it would preserve the spot.
All that work they did,
Yeah,
clearing the snow
it was
out.
serious,
And didn't you say it was hard to open your front door because the snow
everything.
could cover your front door?
Well, you would have to spend a long time shoveling it out, you know?
Right.
Like when we came back from Jamaica from that Christmas, and it had just snowed. It wasn't snowing anymore, but the snow was all, and the cab driver told us he would take us as far as he could.
But it wasn't far enough.
He had to drop us off 2 blocks from home because it wasn't plowed. So your father had to, the driver put us out on the street, and your dad had to take trips back and forth to the house with kids and luggage and all kinds of crap.
And my sister was born in 1979.
Yeah, Lisa, she was little. We had her with us.
That's November. She was born in November, right after Thanksgiving.
She was born in Evanston.
So, and then right after that, we went down to Jamaica with her as a little baby. Came back.
On vacation,
Came back.
and that's when your father decided he didn't want to live here anymore. When that snow
Into this
was-
blizzard.
The blizzard
Knocked it out.
made up his mind. I got to get out of here.
But we were doing well here.
We were doing very well in Chicago.
It was just the weather.
We had a big apartment building. We had a small apartment building. We had 2 duplexes.
The
I
real-
had a job. I loved it. I loved Evanston. We were doing well. And then that blizzard hit.
we were like the Jeffersons moving on up.
Yeah, we're like that. Yep.
My dad was like George Jefferson. He was about to be rich.
Things were looking good.
But that damn blizzard, it hit, and he had to escape. He was a tropical person from Jamaica,
That's right.
so he just couldn't take the cold.
So that's why we moved to Florida.
So we packed up all our stuff
Everything.
and got on the first flight down to Florida, and we moved to Lake Worth, Florida, which is it's in Palm Beach,
It was pretty rural in those days.
sunny South Florida.
Yeah.
They were still clearing the swamp back then.
Yes, they were doing all that. Yep.
We basically moved to some freshly cleared swampland. Snakes and lizards and frogs and mosquitoes. What do you call Florida? What do you call it? It's
Subtropical.
no. I mean you've labeled it. You said Florida
Oh,
is.
it's a God-forgiven, mosquito-ridden swamp. That's
Yeah.
what Florida is.
God-forsaken.
God-forsaken, mosquito-ridden swamp.
Yes, and people go down there and they think it's got nice weather
No,
and beaches,
yeah, it
And-
has beaches.
but you can't afford to live on the beach unless you're a billionaire.
Right.
So you're living way across, far away from the beach.
In the swamp.
It
With all the alligators and the great big spiders and tarantulas and all that. You're living there.
and immediately we get to Florida, what happens? A financial crisis.
Yeah,
Because we didn't sell our house right.
Mr. Thomas sold our property in Evanston on a land contract. And on a land contract, you have to pay the taxes, the owner. We were still the owners. And we moved to Florida, and the people that bought our houses knew that we were moving to Florida. So they never paid us anything, and we almost lost everything we ever had.
They were about to foreclose,
On everything.
But
We got a lawyer,
but who bailed us out?
the lawyer.
Your mom.
Oh, yeah, we would have lost our house in Florida if my mother hadn't come up with the money for that. She did. Mother bailed us out.
So we moved down to Florida. We get ourselves into a financial crisis, and your mother, Marjorie Botts,
Marjorie Botts Warzon, yeah, she
she came through
bailed us out. Yep.
with some buku bucks, not just a little bit of money,
Thousands of dollars.
tens of thousands. right now that would be worth $100,000. Just say it like that. But that bailed us out, and that's what basically my memory starts.
Yeah.
I can remember how things were back then. We moved to Florida. There was no air conditioning.
We didn't have air conditioning for 8 years because our roof was flat. And it wasn't until I moved to a hospital where a guy I worked with was doing air conditioning, and he put air conditioning in our house. So for 8 years, we didn't have any.
No AC in South Florida. That is torture.
Horrible.
We did have a window unit though. So,
Yeah,
so we would be up by that window unit. We would be just sucking the cold air out of the dang thing. But boy, we looked at Miami. Even in 1981, Miami was too crazy. It was nuts.
Now, they were having riots in Miami.
They were having riots. It was.
They were killing people in Miami.
That guy's son had just. We looked at Atlanta, but they were doing the child murders.
Atlanta had the child murders.
They were murdering
little black boys.
Little black boys at that time, so you couldn't do Atlanta.
No, Atlanta was crossed off the list immediately.
Miami was equally bad, and then you just kept going up. Fort Lauderdale, it must have been crazy. So you had to come all the way up to West Palm Beach.
Yeah, well, we had a friend who showed us some houses in West Palm Beach, and that's how we found our house.
Before we could find.
But we looked over on the West Coast. We looked all over Florida. We looked in Tampa.
Yes.
We came down on trips, and we decided Palm Beach was close to Miami Airport, that we could drive there, and it wasn't crowded like Miami.
It was far enough away from the madness.
But it was close enough.
But it was close
Far
enough.
enough and close enough.
Close enough to civilization, but not right in the middle of the madness.
Yeah. So that's where we moved to.
I always felt like it was a pioneering time to be in Lake Worth where we were. A lot of the developments, it was still a dairy farm when we moved there, with cows across.
Oh, there was a dairy farm across the road. Yeah.
It was still developing. You know, there was. We lived on a dirt road when we first got there, but now it's paved. You know, everything. You don't even recognize it when you go back.
Yep.
But I felt very much like a pioneer.
I never warmed up to it. Never.
No, I'm not saying that's a good thing. What I am saying is, I had the same feeling you had.
Yeah.
When you moved to the sticks in Menominee.
Yeah.
It was like we went from Chicago
down
to the
there.
sticks.
Yeah.
A different kind of sticks, but it was
sticks.
It was still a dirt road, and it was still totally undeveloped. So we always used to complain about that. I'm sure you remember.
Did. Yeah.
And boy, we grew up though. My sister and I, Lisa. Shout out to Lisa. We grew up there. It wasn't that bad. We had a good childhood.
It was fair.
You worked your fanny off.
I did. I had to work very hard.
You had.
Desmond never caught on in Florida. Desmond's work never.
It didn't blossom like
it didn't blossom like
it did in Chicago.
In Chicago, we were on the way up, but when we hit Florida, it was just a dead end.
There was recession after recession after, and your job was pretty recession proof. You know, the medical, you had.
I always had a job, but it didn't pay because it was Florida. It paid well in Chicago, but not in Florida. So my pay was bad.
So you had to have you had to work twice as hard.
Yeah.
To make half as much.
That's right.
But somehow you kept a roof over our head.
That's right.
And
it was hard.
I'm eternally grateful. When I say grateful, I mean I understand how privileged we were, because a lot of the other kids they had to get, you know, school lunches.
Yeah.
And they only had one parent or whatever.
Yeah.
But you guys, you were there for us, and we had everything we ever needed or could ask for. We went on vacations, we had health care, we had dental.
That's right.
We had the middle class life in South Florida, which is, trust me, that's a blessing right there.
It was very hard work, I will say. But, you know, now I'm retired, I'm happy up here.
Now I'm returning the favor.
Yes.
We putting a roof over your head.
Well, I love Evanston. I'm so happy I'm here.
We love it too. Thank you. Thank you for showing it to us. And yeah, just trying to make your life as good as we possibly can. Can you talk to us, because race relations is huge right now. It's always been huge in our life.
In your life?
Race was always huge because I felt like I was in the middle.
Yes.
These people are going back and forth, but I'm not picking sides, because really there's only one race. I'm the race, the human race. When I was born, I never knew anything about black and white people.
Right.
Because it was all in my house. Black and white people were in my house on the same team, on the same side, doing the same things, living together in harmony. I never understood what the problem was of race. It was until I was 15 or so before I could figure out why. I could even wrap my head around what the problem was.
Yeah, I think you and Lisa got the race relations problem. I never felt it. I never felt the race relation. Your dad always protected me from it.
But in 2020, you understand that they have Black Lives Matter protests.
I understand it all now, but I never experienced. Nope, it never hit me in the face.
You told me that your grandpa used to watch boxing, but as soon as black people started winning in boxing, he turned it off.
That's true.
And you told me that we had your aunt, they never approved of you
Right.
marrying a black man.
Grandpa didn't.
They never approved of it. So
No,
you must have felt some of the racial issue with that.
That was after, the grandpa and the boxing, I figured that out years later. At the time that he quit watching boxing, I didn't know why it was.
You put two and two together.
Later, way later, yeah. And then when we went, Desmond and your dad and I went to Paul's wedding, Uncle Paul's wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Grandpa didn't go, and I was shocked. But that's when I found out that he didn't approve. But he didn't say anything ahead of that. He didn't say anything until the wedding.
Right.
But I didn't know any of that.
You didn't let it affect you.
No, I didn't let it affect me one bit. Didn't.
That's a privilege that you have that we don't have.
Yes.
Because several times in my life, people made race very clear to me by calling me the N-word.
Yeah.
The first few times, I laughed because I didn't know what it was. I was like 10 years old. It didn't mean anything to me at all.
Uh-huh.
It would be like saying, you're a booger. But they called me the N-word.
Yeah. Wow.
You're a booger. That's funny. You're a booger. That's how I treated it, like it was nothing. And like I said, it wasn't until I was like 15 before I fully understood what racism even was.
That's right.
But ever since then, racism hit me many times.
Yeah.
Where it wouldn't hit you, it wouldn't hit you.
No.
Because they wouldn't call you that. It's a privilege. There's such a thing as white privilege. There is.
Oh, yeah. And like I say, Desmond is very good at protecting me from everything.
Right.
He really did. It was like a wall. So sometimes I felt guilty for what you and Lisa went through because I realized it was a lot different for you than
we were always the only black person everywhere we went. It was very difficult.
Yeah.
It was so hard, but we didn't know it until we were like 12 or so.
What was wrong?
No, we didn't know we were black until we were like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
That's when we knew, because they made us know. But you see the current climate now with the politics, with the president,
Yeah.
and with the it doesn't it remind you of the 60s?
Horrible. Well, I think it's worse than the 60s.
It's worse
think
because
it's
we've
worse.
had all this time to fester. People aren't so open-minded. Is that what you're saying?
Well, in the 60s, people were becoming aware that things had to change. But now they're mad that things have changed and they want it to go back. The white people. So it's kind of worse.
It's like we're going to try this experiment in the 60s. We're
Yeah.
going to try it. Now they're
They
saying
don't
we've
like it.
tried it. We're not trying it anymore.
And they want to go back.
We took a wrong turn. We're going to go back to the way things were before civil rights.
That's the way it feels.
They're more closed-minded.
Yeah.
They're more defined in their racism.
And I think it's because of Mr. Trump, yeah. I think he's encouraging that.
I think he's just a beneficiary of it. I think it's just because our whole entire country it really has slid backwards, and they need somebody to blame. They need somebody to blame. So anybody other than themselves. This doesn't only apply to one type of people. Everybody, it's a psychological thing. They want to blame somebody else instead of looking within. That's my explanation of all of these problems.
Yeah, well, I think things are really bad right now. Yeah.
And you're fully aware now of race relations.
Yes.
But it took you to the age of.
No, I became aware of it when I was dating your father, but all the ins and outs I had to learn through the years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a great discussion. Maybe we'll do this again, maybe we won't. But hearing from you and your take on things is priceless.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
hope you
I have a
enjoyed
lot more stories to tell, so I hope there's more episodes.
All right, this was just an introduction. I'll let you have the last word. Is there anything you want to say to future generations, family, older generations, the world?
Yes, because I would say that if you're living your life, you're getting started in life, and you have to go for what works for you. Don't let other people tell you what to do. You just go ahead and do what's right for you, and life will turn out okay. Yes.
Yes. All right, we're gonna have you on for individual stories about things like that,
Yes.
like that trunk there, and just individual stories.
That's right.
This was just the beginning of
That's right.
many more.
Episodes.
But this was a good intro, Mom. Cheers.
Good beginnings.
New beginnings.